Humanity is always looking to the future. Someone with hope, someone with horror, but regardless of feeling and emotions, with curiosity. What does the coming day have in store for us? What event awaits the world? Such questions beckon intrigue, excite, but the above described also has a downside. Having pricked up their eyes toward an uncertain tomorrow, the human race loses sight of the most important thing, its own past. For example, the game industry has long had a problem with a preservation of classics, for a whole bunch of reasons. Not every masterpiece has moved from disk and floppy disk to digital format, while major publishers pretended that this is how it should be. Smaller teams are trying to save the day, in particular Night Dive Studios, a group of archaeologists who rescue little-known action games from legal oblivion. The list of their exploits grows from year to year, and the studio recently celebrates the restoration of the console version of PowerSlave, the god of a forgotten shooter in Egyptian settings. It's a high time. You can relate to Nintendo in different ways, but one thing cannot be taken away from it: the craving for experiments. No matter what is happening in the field of technology, the legendary corporation is always looking for more and more new ways to interact with its audience. Some would say that the apotheosis of the amazing approach was a regular release of Nintendo Direct, or say attempts to turn the 3DS and Wii UI into social platforms, when in fact the company's client-oriented approach reached its peak much earlier, in the 18s. It was then long before Let's Play and YouTube guides. Nintendo of America launched a unique call center designed to help kids cope with the difficulties that come their way. Busted truth, puzzle not given, etc. Call a specialist will help give advice in difficult times. The service was started, of course, not for charity, but in addition to income. It brought much more to the industry, new valuable personnel. So in 18th, by chance, Brian McKinley, a simple guy with a obvious dream in such stories, took the place at the phone. An unusual job seems like the perfect start to a career in game development, but the position of the telephone operator also had a drawback. Certainly, sitting with a pipe in hand and discussing new products all day long, of course, is fun, and yet McKinley yearned for more to make games. Therefore, it was worth his colleague Paul Leak to talk about his studio, and Brian instantly clung to the idea. So word for word, in a smoking room in the 94, a small lobotomy software began its time. As soon as he quit Nintendo, the lobotomies immediately set to work. The dreams of hits generated concepts and rewritten demos, which however no one needed. To make ends meet, lobotomy released a couple of good knickknacks, but it was all wrong. Fortunately for her, shooters gained popularity in the mid-19th, and the young team decided to try their luck in a fashionable and unfamiliar genre. The idea was simple: to make a cool action movie on boot engine exclusively on a PC. In the course of development, the plan was correct. The studio drew attention to Saturn and PlayStation, consoles without their flagship FPS, and undertook to spot and upload files before it was too late. There was no question of a simple port. Technical limitation coupled with ambition of McKinley and his comrades results in a unique hybrid of action and platformings, against which the DOS version seems like an ordinary Doom clone. Both PowerSlaves landed on the shelves at the end of '96 and quickly sent into oblivion. The PC release was slammed for banality. Apart from the intrigue and a good arsenal, there was nothing special about it. Console publication in turn simply did not notice the lack of advertising campaign, the small number of copies released, and the status of shooter for consoles that were not the most flattering at the time affected. Through the effort of journalists, the European release was quite much warmer, But lobotomy did not help. Apart from a couple of impressive ports, the studio did not release anything significant anymore, and its main creation was lost in a stream of other, much more commercially successful release. Fortunately, in Egypt, according to popular culture, the dead do not like to sit in sarcophagi. Samuel Valery Akakisa took up the recursion of an unsuccessful FPC using the Keck engine many years ago, first on his own, then as a part of Nightdive. And now the question for a backlink thing. Was it worth digging up this Cephalus? At first, it's hard to say. PowerSlave meets the viewer with one of the most important attributes of shooters of the 19th, charming nonsense, which the authors with barely considerable irony pass off a lot of plot. So in the near future, strange thing begins to happen. In the vicinity of the once majestic city of Karnak, it turns out that the aliens were to blame. The villains quietly settled in the pyramids, plundered the local tombs, and as it were not enough, stole the mummified body of the king from their stone. The power imprisoned in it, as it turned out, serves an excellent source of energy for guests from the stars. To resolve the situation, and helpful of the best mercenaries from around the world are sent into the thick of thick in a helicopter, which as expected crashed before reaching its destination. Only one fighter managed to survive the catastrophe, and the fate of the planet is in the tenant hands. The protagonist's intro comes to the end. The game itself starts, and the main opponents of the pre-hero turn out to be not creepy monsters, but spiders and scorpions, which the ugly virus of the world is forced to pick with a machete or shoot with a weak revolver. Poor arthropods burst from a wave of knife and leave behind colorful balls as a keepsake. Exploding burning waves for some reason stand guard over that seems like a devastated tomb of Ramses, and he, in the voice of the lead Don LaFontaine, sends a soldier of fortune in search of magical artifacts, among which, looking ahead, there are brand new sandals. Yes, this is not doomed for you. Like many cult titles, PowerSlave leaves a strange, even dreary impression at first. There is no meat here, with which the best shooters in the 90 begins. There's not behind the scenes rock that turns any routine action into a feat. The fighter harnesses slowly, moves linearly, and feels somewhat boring if you close your eyes to the absurdity of what is happening, in a genre where it is customary to meet with a bread and circuses. Such slowness is perceived as a mistake. It is understandable the developers were inexperienced. It's just what everything is somewhat more complicated. With a banal and unprincipled opening level, the authors simply fooled their village before the ensuing seconds. Once and narrow corridors suddenly give way to interaction with seemingly impenetrable dead ends and locked doors. 2. The architecture becomes more complex. Vertical gradually comes to the fore. 3. And the eyes begins to callous inaccessible, intriguing secrets, places that are idly visible even to the most closed middle gamer. It is there on the winding streets of Karnak and its environs. The designers finally show, not in words but in deeds, what they really have in minds, and they consider nothing less than Metroid in the first person. A lone mercenary lands in a enchanted, skill-demanding platform, multi-form final boss, Samus Aran for a bandana-wearing man, and the best of for Egypt, and Viola. The parallels are obvious. It's clear that today you will not surprise anyone with Metrodorians. On Steam they appear every week like mushroom after rain, but here is worth considering the time when the shooter came out. In 19th, long before the triumph of Retro Studios and its Metroid Prime, a small unknown lobotomy software managed to transfer Nintendo's masterpiece to 3D, And do it's not just like that, but with intelligence and understanding several genres at once. This is expressed in how allegedly everything is decorated. Years of working on the phone in a call center and daily conversation with gamers have rewarded McKinley and launched with excellent design play. The locations are carefully thought out, and tests are varied and dangerous in a good way, and almost every outdoor decision is justified by something, outside of particularly tricky secrets and a couple of obstacles towards the end. The game does not feel dishonest or annoying, and the rare moments that endure are clearly designed to endure, build up suspense by the mere fact of their existence. Even a backtracking is kept to a minimum, thanks to the division of the world into clear segments levels. You don't need to stop somewhere after receiving the next upgrade for a long time, and the locations themselves, which you definitely need to return to in search of another way out, are full of cuts, sometimes non-obvious, sometimes even undocumented, but always useful. The talent of lobotomy is always manifested in how carefully and steadily the team shifts the focus from gunfights to performing, which becomes more and more as we approach the ending. In any other FFS, it would be like a death, but here all these fights over a seat and lava feel surprisingly out of the place. Good control and good maneuverability of the protagonist in the air effects. Classics require careful attitude, which alas not everyone understands. We mastered with the broken lighting, hastily assembled rare releases, smaller releases disappearing from stores, shutdown of digital service as such. You will think that the industry is doing everything possible, if only gamers could not enjoy games older than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Against the background, PowerSlave Exhumed is like a ray of light in the realm of darkness. An early flagless port of an amazing and undeservedly forgotten shooter that has passed the test of time with a brilliance and finally found in a second life. It is clear that the brainchild of lobotomy software is not without flaws, and the approach to game design has changed markedly in 25 years. Hence the score is lower than they would like. Nevertheless, PowerSlave was and still is an exciting adventure with ideas ahead of its time, delicious actions, solid platforming, elements of Metroid, and an underwater temple, which is many times better than its counterparts from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Quite good for a little-known shooter in 19th, isn't it?